So, 2011, think about it. Apple. This titan forged by Steve Jobs suddenly facing the unthinkable, his passing.
Yeah, the whole tech world just sort of held its breath, didn't it? Bracing for impact.
Absolutely. Could this giant, synonymous with innovation possibly keep going without him?
And the dominant narrative was pretty clear. Inevitable decline.
Totally. And stepping into that massive void, Tim Cook, the operations maestro.
A figure many just dismissed. Lacked the product brilliance, they said. Not the guy to navigate those waters.
It was a truly precarious moment. Jobs wasn't just the CEO. He was Apple in the public eye.
Exactly. So the idea of the company not just surviving, but thriving under a leader with such a different skill set seemed, well, improbable, frankly.
The worry wasn't just filling a role. It was about preserving that perceived magic, wasn't it?
That's it.
And that's precisely what we're diving into today. This isn't just recounting events. We're really dissecting the dynamics of this transition, looking for the early signs of Cook's impact. Our mission isn't really about dwelling on the past, but understanding the mechanics of this handover.
How does a company so tied to one person's, aura adapt and, dare I say, evolve?
What can we learn about leadership, resilience, and maybe those unexpected paths to success?
And we'll be pulling out some genuinely surprising bits, I think, about Cook's background and those really crucial first moves that kind of set the stage for what came next.
Okay, let's unpack this. The book takes us back to August 2011. Steve Jobs, in a really personal moment, asked Tim Cook to come to his house.
Right. Despite his health declining, Jobs made it clear. He wanted Cook as CEO, he'd stay on as chairman.
But what's striking is that both of them, initially anyway, seemed to think Jobs would still be heavily involved, wielding considerable influence.
That's a crucial nuance, isn't it? Jobs becoming chairman wasn't just symbolic. The initial expectation, it seems, was continued guidance.
Cook himself later said he hadn't expected Jobs' passing so soon.
So it wasn't just handing over a title. It was this subtle negotiation of influence and maybe the slow realization for Cook that he'd truly be leading independently.
And that conversation, the book recounts it, gives us amazing glimpse into their changing relationship. Jobs tells Cook straight up, "You will be making the decision."
Simple statement, but huge. A massive shift from Jobs' usual, almost absolute control.
Cook even kind of tests this new reality, doesn't he? He asks about advertising. Like, if he sees an ad he likes, can they run it without Jobs' okay?
And Jobs' reply is so telling. Well, I hope you'll at least ask my opinion. Playful, but revealing.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is Cook almost sounds hesitant, asking, "You really want me to do this again and again?"
Well, after years in Jobs' orbit, even in COO, this level of autonomy, it was uncharted territory. You feel the weight of responsibility he felt even then.
So the book then moves into the immediate reactions. Publicly, and even inside Apple, lots of people doubted Cook could fill those shoes.
Oh, definitely. Names like Joni Ive, the design guru, or Scott Forstall, head of iOS back then, they were often mentioned, seemed like more fitting successors to some.
I've obviously had that close creative bond with Jobs, very visible.
And Forstall, ambitious, sharp on software. Some inside Apple even saw him as a potential mini Steve. Cook, by contrast, mostly an enigma to the public.
Master of supply chains, logistics,
Yeah.
but not seen as that source of creative innovation.
Yeah, and the book digs up this really blunt quote from a Silicon Valley investor back in 2008.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Nobody's going to put Tim Cook at the head of the company. That's just comical. They need a product person, not a guy who just works. He's operations, and that's in a company that outsources manufacturing.
Wow. Harsh. Really highlights that perception, doesn't it? Purely functional, lacking the magic touch.
It crystallizes the skepticism. The belief was Apple's magic was all Jobs' creative genius, and the supply chain guy couldn't replicate it.
It really underestimated Cook's role in making Jobs' visions happen, didn't it? Getting those products made efficiently, at scale.
Totally. The flaw was focusing on one genius and missing the system strengths Cook had already built.
Which brings us to a key point. Cook wasn't exactly a rookie leader. The book reminds us he'd stepped in during Jobs' medical leaves.
Right, 2003, 2009, earlier in 2011 too.
And those periods, though temporary, gave him a crucial experience, showed he could maintain stability.
Absolutely. Those interim stints were more important than people realized. They showed the board, key Apple people, what Cook could do. It wasn't a complete leap into the dark.
And the board clearly trusted him. The book points to his big compensation in 2010, even as COO.
And those significant stock options when he became CEO, That's concrete proof of their confidence.
That kind of financial backing, yeah, it speaks volumes, shows the insiders saw something the external analysts were missing. They knew his value. So, August 24th, 2011, the official announcement. Cook is CEO, Jobs is chairman. But the initial reaction, as the book describes it, still heavily colored by expecting Jobs' continued involvement.
The feeling was Jobs would still be the guiding force, somehow.
The media certainly pushed that narrative, didn't they? Reports citing sources saying Jobs would still shape product strategy.
There was this collective wishful thinking, almost, a desire to believe Jobs hadn't really let go.
And interestingly, the book notes Apple's stock only dipped a bit, less than 6%.
Which suggests the market, like the public, hadn't fully processed what Jobs truly stepping away meant.
Or maybe they just believed in that continuity idea, that Jobs as chairman would buffer any disruption.
Could be. So Cook's initial strategy, the book explains, was all about stability. No immediate radical changes.
Which made sense, partly because of those rumors about Jobs having a 4-year product roadmap, right?
Exactly. Why rock the boat? Why deviate from a plan possibly laid out by Jobs himself?
Cook needed to build trust internally and externally. Sweeping changes right off the bat. Too risky.
And his internal communication was key. That reassuring email to employees.
Yeah, emphasizing Apple's not going to change, committing to Jobs' legacy, that was crucial for morale.
Vital leadership piece. Acknowledging the moment but offering stability. It's a tricky balance, honoring the past while moving forward.
Then the book highlights the big contrast in leadership style. Jobs, famously confrontational, demanding. Cook, more collaborative, communicative.
Yeah, a noticeable increase in internal emails, more team language, even continuing to answer customer emails, like Jobs did, but maybe with a different tone.
That shift in culture is significant. Jobs' intensity drove innovation, sure, but it could be volatile.
Cook's approach seemed aimed at harnessing collective intelligence differently, maybe more sustainably.
And there's that great example, the War Eagle email. A customer signs off with the Auburn battle cry.
And Cook replies quickly, enthusiastically, shows a different kind of connection, more approachable, personal.
It humanized him differently from Jobs' more curated, enigmatic persona.
Yeah, showed engagement on a more individual level.
Then, just weeks after Cook takes over, the unimaginable. October 5th, 2011. Steve Jobs passes away.
The book really captures that profound global reaction, just shock, grief, amplified by Jobs being relatively young and Apple's almost mythical status.
It was seismic, bigger than just business news. Jobs was a cultural icon.
His passing hit millions who felt connected to his products, and it just magnified the weight on Cook.
The grief was incredible. Tributes at Apple stores everywhere. Even competitors like Microsoft lowered their flags.
President Obama's statement, quoted in the book, calling Jobs one of America's greatest innovators. It really captured the mood.
That global mourning just underlined Jobs' massive influence and the immense pressure now on Cook.
Navigating the company forward in the shadow of that figure.
Yet amidst all that loss, Apple's products kept selling like crazy.
Right. The book notes record pre-orders for the iPhone 4S right after he died, and his biography sales surged.
It's like his passing almost amplified the desire for his innovations, a strange paradox.
Poignant, yeah. The loss of the creator intensified appreciation for the creations, and that strong performance gave Cook vital breathing room, some goodwill.
Which brings us to the next big point. Those early, widespread predictions of doom for Apple.
Oh yeah, the narrative was stark. Apple was doomed without Jobs.
This sense of foreboding was almost tangible, wasn't it? The belief that Apple's innovation, its market position, it was all tied to Jobs' unique genius.
And without him, many were confident the magic would just evaporate.
The book highlights a really stark example. May 2011 Huffington Post article, title, Why Apple is Doomed.
Oof. Pretty definitive.
The argument was Apple wouldn't recover because Jobs' brilliant taste, the secret sauce, wasn't transferable.
And the quote in the book is blunt. Without that product superiority, people will remain deaf to their arrogant marketing. Basically, the premium brand relied on Jobs' unique vision.
It's a perspective that really misses Apple's underlying strength, though, doesn't it? The systems, the operations, the teams Cook had helped build.
Exactly. It overlooked all that. The fear was, without the singular visionary, Apple just becomes another tech company, resting on its laurels.
Then there was George Colony, Forrester's CEO. He gave an even grimmer forecast. Decline within 2 to 4 years.
His reasoning, according to the book, was losing Jobs' charisma, his risk-taking, his product innovation skill. Irreplaceable stuff, he thought.
And he drew parallels, right? Sony after Merida, Polaroid after Land, Disney after Walt.
Even Apple after Jobs' first exit in the 80s. Plus, cautionary tales like Ford, Walmart, Microsoft under Ballmer.
Colony's analysis tapped into that old business narrative. Founder departs, company declines, but maybe it didn't account for how leadership itself evolves.
Or the potential for different styles to bring different kinds of success. The comparisons highlighted the perceived risk, but maybe missed the nuance.
And the doubts lingered for years. The book quotes Michael Useem from Wharton in 2015, over 3 years later.
Still observing debate about whether Cook could maintain Apple's momentum, the shadow of Jobs was long.
Even with Apple hitting record financial success under Cook, that question persisted. Could they keep the innovative edge, the cultural relevance?
And the 2014 book Haunted Empire by Yukari Kane pushed that decline narrative hard, arguing Apple was suffering from Jobs' absence.
Cook being trapped in Jobs' shadow, competing with a brilliant, unforgettable visionary, even in death.
Kane's view highlights that immense psychological weight of succeeding a legend. Could anyone ever truly measure up to Jobs' mythical status?
It's almost ironic. The book then brings up a quote from Jobs himself from 1985, saying large companies often lose their vision, and by the time he died, Apple was huge. So the implied question is, did Cook have the vision, the product passion, to avoid the fate Jobs himself foresaw?
That's the core tension, isn't it? Jobs knew the challenge. The doubts about Cook stemmed from him seeming to lack that visionary spark so central to Jobs.
Greg Joswiak, Apple's marketing VP, had a great analogy. Taking over Apple was like getting the keys to a Harley-Davidson.
Perfect. Captures the weight, the iconic status. Not just another company, a cultural phenomenon. A very serious challenge, as he put it.
Yet, despite all that pressure, the external doubts, the internal anxiety, Cook seemed remarkably calm. Outwardly, at least.
That stoic demeanor, it's classic Cook leadership style. Probably a crucial stabilizer inside Apple during all that upheaval.
People unfairly compared Cook directly to Jobs.
Which was inevitable, maybe.
But Cook wisely focused on being himself, using his own strengths, not trying the impossible task of replicating Jobs. No one could do that.
That's pivotal. Cook's strength wasn't imitation. It was recognizing his distinct talents and applying them. Mimicking Jobs. A dead end.
Cook even said it himself in that 2014 Charlie Rose interview. Jobs knew he wasn't a copy.
He felt the responsibility, sure, but aimed to be the best Tim Cook he could be.
Powerful, self-aware, rejecting the pressure to just emulate Jobs.
It shows deep understanding of his own capabilities, honoring the legacy by forging his own path, grounded in his own values.
Okay, so we've set the scene. The huge challenge, the skepticism. Now let's dig into the experiences that shaped the man. The book have a big chapter on his background. The worldview formed by the Deep South.
Starting with his early life in Mobile, Alabama. His dad worked at the shipyard. His mom was a pharmacist.
A close-knit, working-class family picture. Quite different from Jobs' upbringing, suggesting different influences.
That more traditional community grounding likely instilled different values, maybe a more pragmatic approach.
And the book stresses his deep bond with his parents. Those Sunday calls home, even when traveling for Apple.
His mom passed in 2015, but he stayed close to his dad. Family clearly mattered hugely.
That connection to his roots speaks to his personal values, doesn't it? Loyalty, long-term relationships, things that probably inform his leadership.
Then the family moved briefly to Pensacola, Florida, but came back to Robertsdale, Alabama in '71. Why? Better public schools.
Robertsdale is painted as this small, tight-knit southern town, initially agriculture-based. His mom affectionately called it a little hole.
Small-town upbringing maybe fosters community, a more grounded perspective, less big city noise.
The book also explores his Baptist church upbringing and its lasting impact on his values.
Referencing his Washington Post op-ed in 2015 and that 2014 Bloomberg statement about his sexual orientation being a gift from God.
He's not overtly religious publicly now, but it clearly shaped his moral compass. Especially in the Deep South context, it likely instilled strong ethics, maybe a commitment to social justice.
That early faith community probably provided a strong moral framework that still influences him.
And contrasting Cook with Jobs again. Cook was studious, well-liked, always most studious.
His math teacher remembered him as reliable, hardworking. The valedictorian said he wasn't a nerd, just well-regarded.
Very different image from Jobs' more rebellious youth narrative, suggests a more disciplined, maybe collaborative personality.
That difference hints at different approaches to problem-solving leadership. Cook's studiousness likely fostered that meticulous analytical mind.
We also hear from a classmate, Clarissa Bradstock, remembers him as super smart, well-read, great sense of humor. They liked SNL together.
Her comment about his success reflecting well on him and the country is quite poignant.
Those anecdotes give a more rounded picture, right? Beyond just grades, shows interpersonal skills, connection.
Then the book lists his early jobs. Trombone in the band, delivering newspapers, working at a restaurant, helping his mom at the pharmacy.
Lead drugs in the Spaceway Shopping Center, which is apparently still there, looking a bit worn, but people have spotted him back there.
Those diverse experiences, music, customer service, retail, probably gave him a broad understanding of business operations, customer interaction.
Hands-on stuff, instilled responsibility, service, practical realities, useful later on.
And notably, senior year. Business manager for the yearbook, set records for sales and advertising.
His teacher, Barbara Davis, again, perfectly suited for it. The book even mentions a yearbook photo cook with an electric typewriter, big headphones.
Foreshadowing his tech future, maybe unintentionally.
That early success, managing the yearbook finances, adds. It shows a natural knack for organization, strategy, getting results, fundamental leadership skills.
A fascinating glimpse of his inherent capabilities, even back then.
But the chapter on his Southern roots also tackles a tougher subject, the hidden racism in Robertsdale.
The book explores the theory that their move might have coincided with white families leaving Pensacola over desegregation tensions.
The civil rights backdrop is crucial context for his worldview. Alabama desegregated schools earlier than some, but racial bias was still deeply entrenched.
Right. The timing, if linked to Pensacola's desegregation, put them in a community perhaps less overtly dealing with it, but still within that broader context of tension.
Clarissa Bradstock remembers no black students in their school and witnessing casual, everyday racism.
And the book includes that disturbing anonymous story from '66, a racially motivated assault nearby, underscores the deep prejudice, even if not always openly acknowledged.
It paints a picture of a society grappling with segregation's legacy. Bias was maybe less visible in a mostly white town, but still a pervasive undercurrent.
Those accounts are a stark reminder of the era and the subtle ways prejudice manifested.
Then, most powerfully, the book details Cook's own experience, seeing a burning cross, KKK members on a road.
Including a chilling confrontation with a robed figure from a church.
An event Cook described in a 2013 speech as leaving an indelible mark, a symbol of ignorance, hate, and fear.
Witnessing that kind of overt hate firsthand, especially young, it would undoubtedly shape your understanding of injustice profoundly.
However, the book acknowledges this account has faced skepticism from some in Robertsdale, mentions Tad Pratt having no memory of it.
And a Facebook discussion where locals doubted Cook's memory, some quite strongly. Important to note those conflicting views.
It's true, memories differ, and maybe there's reluctance to acknowledge such things in a community's history.
Historical narratives can be complex.
But the book offers a counter. Maybe some residents are hesitant. And it notes documented KKK activity and cross-burnings nearby around that time.
Plus that quote from Alabama State Representative Patricia Todd saying the KKK is still active, Alabama's civil rights history can't be denied, provides crucial context.
It underscores that these aren't just historical relics.
Then there's the story of Cook winning a writing contest, leading to meeting Governor George Wallace, the staunch segregationist.
Cook reportedly felt shaking Wallace's hand was a betrayal of his beliefs. Shows his developing moral compass, his early awareness of injustice.
That anecdote reveals a young Cook grappling with ethics, facing figures opposed to his values. Shows a strong commitment to his principles early on.
And the book directly links these experiences with discrimination to his later push for diversity and inclusion at Apple.
Increased minority hiring, grants to historically black colleges. Make sense?
And his references to MLK and Robert Kennedy as childhood heroes in that 2013 speech, saying he grew up sickened by the discrimination he saw.
The photos of King and the Kennedys in his office, a daily reminder, fueling his commitment. It's clear those early encounters instilled a deep-seated drive for social justice.
Values he actively brought into Apple's leadership.
It's evident that exposure cultivated this profound, enduring commitment to fairness and equality translated into tangible corporate actions.
Lisa Jackson, former EPA head who joined Apple, is quoted saying his Southern upbringing profoundly shaped his worldview.
Suggesting that seeing ugliness can actually create perspective, opportunity for positive change. Connects his activism straight back to his formative years.
Jackson's insight is powerful. Witnessing injustice can be a catalyst for working towards a better world.
The book emphasizes Cook's belief You don't have to choose between doing good and doing well, cites his 2015 GWU speech.
And his refusal to compromise on values, that famous 2014 exchange with the National Center for Public Policy Research rep.
About environmental programs, accessibility features, Cook's response was pointed. Sell your stock if you only care about profit. Striking.
Perfectly illustrates his unyielding commitment, even facing shareholder pushback focused purely on returns.
It encapsulates his philosophy. Corporate success and social responsibility aren't mutually exclusive. They should be intertwined.
And this stance is notably contrasted with Steve Jobs, who seemed less engaged in traditional philanthropy or environmentalism.
Jobs' view, the book explains, was that his main contribution was creating innovative products, a fundamental difference in their philosophies.
It highlights a real evolution in corporate leadership thinking. Jobs focus on the power of creations. Cook embraces a broader view,
Encompassing sustainability, social justice, ethical practices, beyond just the product itself.
So the book wraps this section by highlighting Cook's broader vision. More charity, renewable energy, reducing toxins, improving supply chains, promoting diversity.
And it connects these values back to his Christian faith, Southern roots, the influence of King, Kennedy, even To Kill a Mockingbird.
Finally, it touches on how being gay and growing up in the South informed his support for marginalized groups.
Referencing that powerful 2015 exchange with Stephen Colbert, affirming his responsibility to counter homophobia based on his own experiences as an outcast.
Cook's journey, as laid out here, really shows how deeply personal values, shaped by life experiences, can influence a global corporation's strategy and principles.
His activism isn't separate. It's woven into his leadership. It's a compelling story of personal history shaping professional impact. How a leader's values, forged early on, can transform a massive organization.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Cook's early leadership and formative years, a few key things stand out. We looked at that initial intense skepticism about Apple post-Jobs.
The doom predictions that, well, thankfully never happened.
And we explored how profoundly his Deep South upbringing, especially those encounters with prejudice, shaped the core values he brought to Apple.
The real aha moment, I think, is seeing that effective leadership isn't about copying your predecessor. Cook's journey proves that.
The different approach, rooted in personal values, collaboration, social responsibility. It didn't just ensure continuity, it arguably propelled Apple even higher.
The guy once seen as just the operations guy showed much deeper, more impactful leadership.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on. How do a leader's formative experiences, things seemingly far from business strategy, end up shaping a global powerhouse's direction and values?
Think about that unexpected interplay between personal history and professional success on the world stage. It's bigger than just Apple and Tim Cook, really. It makes you reflect on the human elements driving success and shaping the organizations that touch all